I picked up a brush by mistake in 2014 during the infamous snowstorm, and I was walking in the garage past the box of magical paint, and I was just bored. And I literally picked up that brush and that paint, and I felt like a shift, almost like I was in a movie. And from that moment on, I believe my life changed forever. And from 2014 to 2016, I decided to start wearing my art. And that's really when my career kicked into gear, and I started to teeter between wearable art, murals, home decor, cars, billboards, anything you can think of that can get a color on it, I was doing it. And so here I am 9 years later. I built an empire by myself with some amazing people around me, but I am an example of what you can do when you just try.
So I love your story because, especially for this particular interview, because I normally ask a question and then it has a lead question to it, but you're the perfect person to answer. So normally I ask, what's the difference between passion and purpose?
Mm-hmm. Are you gonna ask me?
Yeah,
that's my question.
I'll start there.
Passion is something that you get excited about, that you enjoy doing, that you might be able to make some money from. I believe purpose has been given to you from birth, and that's like on you. It talks about Jeremiah 29:11, and it talks about God having a plan for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you. And I feel like since birth, I was meant to do something, right? But when you marry purpose and passion, like I've done, my purpose is to motivate and to ignite people. And I believe my passion is fashion and colors. And so I have merged the two, and now I've traded my pulpit for a paintbrush. And so every day I'm working in not only my passion, but also my purpose.
And so then the follow-up question normally is, do you think you find those or they find you?
Who, they? They what?
Passion and purpose.
I believe purpose is given to you at birth. And I believe that passion is something that you end up, it's like a magnet. It just comes to you, right? So when I was born, I was meant to have a microphone in my hand. My passion is what I was supposed to be saying in that microphone. So it's something that you almost accumulate over time. So when I was little, my parents cultivated me being outside of the box, letting me wear colors that are non-traditional, let me be into fashion. And so I realized that made me smile. But also my purpose is I was a chatterbox, and people listened to what I said. So I was like, oh, if I dress up cute and have something decent to say, maybe I'll find my way in this world. And so, I mean, literally everything I've done has always been an emergence of both things. It's always been passion and purpose together.
You're the first muse that has their passion and purpose on display. You created your own set.
Yes.
Nobody else has done this. This is a beautiful piece. What is the inspiration about this piece?
So a couple of years ago, I read a book called They Came Before Columbus. And it was about Africans that came to the Mexican shore, and they saw the Africans and they thought they were royalty. They were like, these must be like Martians from another world. And so a way to honor them, they started to build those. You ever been to Mexico, saw the Olmec heads, like the big heads?
Yes.
So those were actually Africans. And so they were so fascinated by us. We came with furs, we came with lion heads, we came with all this gear. And so they just assumed we were from another planet. And so the night that I read that book, I began to see these faces. And I was like, oh my God, what if these ancestors had names? What if they had eyes? What if they were colorful? And so I just started sketching random faces everywhere. And so literally the next day I started to paint them and put them on social media, and people fell in love with the aesthetic. And I began to do more research about the importance of masks and faces, how our spirits are captured, because most things that we see when we talk to people is our face. I may have on a jacket, I may have on pants, but I could see your face. It's like a screenshot that your eyes takes. And so with my artwork, I feel like I capture the essence of people's energy through their eyes. And so I purposely do that in my paintings. And each painting, neither of the eyes match, because I say it's how you see the world and how the world sees you. And so it's always two different views that people see. It's almost like they say it's the truth, your truth, and the real truth. And so my eyes never match, and the colors are always all over the place, because I feel like people are the perfect jigsaw puzzles. And so that's why my paintings look the way they do.
And then your eyes are there's a quote that says your eyes are the windows to your soul.
Yes.
So how much of your paintings is you interpreting someone's soul versus someone interpreting yours when they see it?
I think art is a combination of a lot of things. I am very driven by emotion and music. And so when I was painting, I was going through a lot of thoughts because towards the end of the year, I'm heavily in reflection mode. And so I was just in my feelings, just period, right? And so I was also listening to an album called 1111, which happens to be my favorite number sequence and time of day and date.
1111 by?
Chris Brown.
Okay.
And so listening to that, I can hear his thought processes. So I don't know if I was channeling him, channeling myself, but most of the time as creatives, we kind of lean towards things that make sense to us, right? And so it was a combination of the historical facts that I love and know, emotions that I was dealing with, music, and just wanting to leave an impact when someone first walks into this space. And so being the first muse to have done this, I had to set the pattern, the tone for anyone that come behind me to make sure that I set the bar really high.
And you did it in the 11th month.
And I did it in November, the 11th month of the year. And so I enjoy being the first because I get to set the tone, but I also enjoy people going above and beyond because I've set the bar so high.
So you described your passion and your purpose,
yes.
Right? And my definition of both is your passion is what God wants you to do for you.
Okay.
Your purpose is what God wants you to do for others.
Okay.
But normally when people talk about one or the other, it's their job, especially entrepreneurs. And you seem to, you have put the two together for what you do in your job, but it doesn't seem like necessarily this is your last hurrah.
No.
Explain how you can go basically have the same passion and purpose and do something else.
Well, I think being a creative, you have to be able to pivot. And so when we think about what happened during COVID year, how we took, if I was a painter that only painted, I would be in big trouble because I'm trying to get into, different spaces. And so I have learned that God can give one gift and multiply it. And so even when, let's say I want to go back to a full-time job, I can be a curator, I can be a director for, transit, I can go and work at a hospital, I can work at a school, because at this point it's a gift and it's also the tools that I've gotten from being an artist. And so it's transferable to many different things. And so I think people can't limit themselves and say, I'm only gonna be an artist, that's it. And so if God wants me to shift my passion to now talk to students or shift my passion to now talk to elderly people, whatever that is, I'm still in my purpose, but I can also marry that to do different things.
What is the biggest misconception about being a full-time entrepreneur?
I believe the biggest misconception about being an entrepreneur is that you have a lot of free time, because that is not true. You have to learn how to maximize your time. Now, I do have a good time and take me some breaks here and there. I'll travel, I'll do different things, but being an entrepreneur, you have to be very, very succinct with your time. If I'm doing something on Thursday, it has to happen at this time because I might miss another client the next day. And you have to understand the power of no, because you don't have to take every opportunity. And I think entrepreneurs, people that look outside, think you're just hustling and being a starving artist. And I'm saying no just as much as I say yes. And so once I say yes, it has to be a quality yes, bigger than just money, because when you say the one right yes, it becomes a domino of positivity that knocks all the other ones over and gets things in motion. And so I think people think of entrepreneurs as they got to take whatever they get, or they hanging around and being bums all day. But I am more busy than I've ever been being an entrepreneur. Like, I have limited time to sleep. Sometimes I forget to eat. I'm trying to, get family time in. My social life is very limited, and I have to do it by choice. And, being an entrepreneur has made me mature in ways that I didn't know. Like, I learned so much more about myself being an entrepreneur. And I think it's important that before you judge an entrepreneur, spend a day with one of us and see how it really goes.
That's a fact. And, I think, too, this notion that being an entrepreneur means you work for yourself.
You
have more bosses when you're an entrepreneur.
Being an entrepreneur is having many bosses. It's just the boss you choose to have, right? Yeah. So if you're my client, working the studio, I am now subjected to whatever you ask me to do for these next 6 months, 5 months, 2 weeks, whatever that is, because I want to get that check that you hold in your hand. If my client is, the Falcons, I need to make the uniforms exactly how she wants it to be, make sure it's commissioned to what she needs it to be in order for me to secure that check. So it's never exactly being your own boss. You're just now choosing who gives you that check.
Do you think, we talked offline about you were pondering if you're gonna continue to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I think when you start, most people who start an entrepreneur with a real purpose, as an entrepreneur with a real purpose, they do it because they need more time to build that purpose out. Mm-hmm. And then if you're successful at it, you figure out over the years how to kind of optimize that. Mm-hmm. Do you think you could go back into corporate America and still have your same creative freedom?
If I went back into corporate America, it would have to be very tailor-made. It would have to be a position that either was created for me or something I felt like it was a gut feeling like I need to take this job. I do believe that when you're married or in a partnership that it changes a little bit being an entrepreneur. And so depending on what my husband does, you know, how many kids we end up having, I think that will also direct if I want to be a full-time entrepreneur, because I might have to end up staying home because childcare is so expensive or whatever those things are. Or if we choose to travel more with the family, you know, if his job is more demanding. And so I think life usually tells you what it wants you to do. I think so many people have, and I've learned that even when I make my dream boards, I have this whole magical list of what I want God to do, but I leave a blank sheet of paper to say, just in case my plan ain't that great, here's a little extra room. And so I think life has to be the same way. I can't write this ironclad plan for the next 5 or 10 years because I never expected to be an artist of this magnitude. I just did it because I wanted to help my mama pay her mortgage. And then now I'm doing billboards in Times Square and all over the world. And so I think many times once you submit yourself to God and his total plan, that's when, the roof is blown off. And so if God want me to go to a Fortune 500 company and be their powerful black girl artist for the right price, absolutely. But it's not on my goal list, but I'm open to if that's what God has for me.
So with your artistry, it's very complex. It's very elaborate.
Yes.
But I think to an untrained eye, it looks like a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Like you just randomly built this, and you did do it freehand. Mm-hmm. We watched you. We got a little footage of it. 6 hours, 6.5 hours.
Yep, right before 7, like 6.75.
But what is the technical or just experience of training that goes into being a new artist or coming up as an artist and then developing to somebody who can do this off kind of like out of thin air?
Well, I am untrained, so I can't speak to training, but I do absorb a lot of creativity all day long, whether it's through music. I often go to museums and just peruse, the different things that are going on. I'll see, and I'm a huge screenshotter and I'll be somewhere. When I went to Portugal, I literally looked at a pattern and, Google searched it, image searched it, found the history of it, the artist that came up with it, and was a part of a tribe. And so I'm really a student of life, and I'm continuously trying to figure out how and why things happen and where they come from. And I think as an artist, you have to be a student of life. Understanding that creativity it's like a living organism. It's continuously growing. And so when I created these pieces, I didn't have no sketch. I just knew I had them 6 colors from Lowe's and I had to maximize them. And I wanted to create something that would be memorable, but also that was indicative of like who I was and where I am on my pattern and my path. And so, whatever happens to it in photos and years to come, they'll be like, wow, I remember she did that in 2023. That was dope. And now that's like another page in my book.
Yeah, because I'm a little jealous, right? Like we had a conversation yesterday where I was like, I see life in words. I interpret life in words. So like, I think we have some of the same influences. Mm-hmm. We have the same inspirations, but the way you translate it is through colors and images, and the way I normally translate it is through words. Mm-hmm. But it's still amazing to me that you just can pick up a paintbrush and do this. Does it scare you that I'm not gonna say it's easy, but you didn't have to get trained? Does it scare you that you was just able to do this and that you might take it for granted one day?
I definitely am in awe. Even when I was done yesterday, I was like, I just can't believe God trusts me with this. And I think I still am so childlike when it comes to my gifts and where it's taken me and what I've been able to do. And I think it's important that you remain childlike. And I think, the Bible always talks about like a child, because sometimes we take for granted how big we are, how great we are, and the things we're able to accomplish, right? And so I think we should all take those mental snapshots of what we've done. And so I'm really big on every month I have like a pile of photos that I go through, like flashcards, like look what God did, look what you did, look what God did. You know, just understanding that none of this is possible without really channeling God. And so when I was traveling the world, when I went to Egypt, they were showing us.
Passport book look crazy.
Oh yeah, it's a booklet. So I went to Egypt, and you know, I'm looking for the kings and queens. You know, they the big bosses, but they said the second in command, right alongside the historians, are artists. And one of the most prized artifacts was a paintbrush. And the paintbrush was like in a bronze case. You know, they're like, if you were an artist, you were like right under the king. And I was so touched because many people that are artists in the States take it for granted. They're like, oh, I'm just an artist. Like they throw it around. But to be able to take something from your brain and to make it into a color, to make it into a photo, to make it into a video, to make it into sound, to put it into words, we are alchemists of the heavens. Like, it's amazing to be able to have the courage to, you know, get naked with your creativity and to share it with the world. And so it's a privilege for me to be able to, you know, it was very vulnerable for me to paint a mural out in the open. People got cameras walking by, you know, y'all having shoots all day. I had to physically zone out. It's almost like me singing for the first time at church on my Easter play.
It was a lot going on.
It was a lot going on. And so I'm like, well, Lord, I don't want to mess up. You know, I mean, it's getting on camera. If I paint on my face, that's getting on camera. And so I think as creators, we have to strip away judging ourselves, because you guys are in love with it. And I'm still seeing stuff that I need to fix. I'm like, Lord, I need to bring the turquoise back. I got to bring the pink back. But your imperfections are what God can use to bring other people to him. And I believe that's what our gifts are meant to do. And so that's what makes me excited about creating something that's so public, because they'll ask about me and then they'll find out who I'm all about. And they're like, child, she talking about God on her page out the whole time. And so that's ultimately what we're supposed to be doing, is pushing everybody back up to their own sense of God.
And it's funny because you have to find a happy medium, right?
Yeah.
'Cause I feel the same way. Like yesterday, and I'm very, very particular about this country club, this studio, this building.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, man, we didn't get all the screws out, or you know, man, we could have sanded the walls a little bit better. Like, but coming from an artist's perspective, I don't want to impede or hinder your art.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, one of my biggest frustrations in life right now is I feel like artists don't realize that they are the tastemakers.
Yeah.
The fans aren't.
Yeah.
Right? And I think because art is such a service, you start to kind of think what the people are going to think is more important than what you think. But really, what you think or what you see or what you paint, what you make, is what's important to them. So I literally tweeted today, the minute artists realize that they're the ones that set the conversation, they're not the ones that have the conversation, then they can create from a freer space.
And I think that's so important, is that we hold the needle, and especially Black creatives. You know, I'm in Portugal. Our Uber driver is listening to Babyface. I'm like, well, what you know about Babyface in Portugal? You know him? I was like, yeah, this is from the States. So we're laughing, and he has a whole playlist curated. He thinks he's found something new. This is stuff from the 80s and the 90s. And I'm like, wow, our magic is still changing lives all over the world. We go into the club, they're playing literally Mary J. Blige. They have Soul Train playing on the TV as if it's a new show. People are like, wow, it's a good show. I'm like, yeah, we watched it in the 90s and the 80s, you know. And I'm like, wow, what we create will set the tone long after we're gone. So these photos, this art, this, you know, these videos, all the things we're creating, it's like a visual time capsule. Like, I'm looking at photos from my dad. He's had on the same fur coat. You know, he's sitting in a wicker chair, maybe a couple of different things. I'm like, wow, history is repeating itself. But if you don't see photos and art, you'll never know what happened in history. And so we hold the keys. We hold the pens, we hold the brushes for what's gonna be repeated in another 10 or 15 years, which is so powerful.
And I think, you know, it's alignment in a very unique way, but that's why the name of this is the Historical Black University of Creators. Because 1, we hold the keys. 2, we teach the world. 3, we make the history. Right? And it's so funny, you had that kind of same experience. Me and Caleb went to Cuba, right?
Also.
So we went to Cuba, and it was a very unique trip. But one of the things that really stood out was, you know, in Cuba, they still have old cars. Like, they're, you know, for all intents and purposes, they're 40 years behind us, right? So we're there, and you know, it's a teenage guy who's I don't even know what you would call them. They're like the bicycle carts.
Okay.
Right? So you sit in the back, you're in the car, and it's a kid or someone pedaling you to where you're going. It's like 11 o'clock at night, we done went to this restaurant, and it's barely in the street lights, and he's driving us back to where we're staying, and Nelly Hot in Here came on.
He started dancing.
He had a little portable old radio. Hot in Here came on. Then 50 Cent came on, and he's like, yeah, I know, like he's bragging to us.
That he know all about.
That he knows our art, essentially. And it's like, that was just so profound to me because great art stands the test of time. And I'm not here to like demean anybody's art, but it's some people who don't treat their art like it's art. And if we don't treat it like it's art, then it'll never be, right?
Being an artist is a gift. And it's something that we can't take for granted because it's such a obligation. Because I was talking to somebody the other day about, like, if Chris Brown didn't come out with 1111, not saying I wouldn't have done this mural, but our art impacts the next art that comes out. So when Robert Glasper first came out with his album, that's when I first picked up a brush, and that's why I put pianos in a lot of my artwork. I was a pianist, and I stopped playing because I didn't want to go to practice. But when I heard his music, I began to see color. So synesthesia began to kick in, which is where you see colors when you hear music. And so if he would have never came out with that album, I might not have ever had that direction as an artist, which also led me to the books, which also led me to the long drives, to run so it's like that one domino literally knocked all these other dominoes in sequence to find who I was supposed to be.
You speak a lot about your dad. You speak a lot about your family, right? You come from a family of creatives. What's a skill that one of your family members have that you don't have that you wish you had? Creatively. She's like, oh, they want all mine.
None. No, honestly. I do believe that our bloodline was meant to be influential to society. One sister is a publicist, that's a creative with words. The other sister is a comedian and a creator and
a yard runner.
And a Nike yard runner. And I love that I was able to be the oldest, obviously, but I was able to show them what taking your gift could do for your life, right? And I think a lot of people see, because our dad was a serial entrepreneur. He's a pastor, but he was also a full-time teacher. He spoke, he did audiovisual, he went around the world, he was a designer. And so I never knew one job. I never knew that, having a career was a monolith. It was always like, okay, when you get home, what are we doing after this? I mean, my mom would literally be in her briefcase, going to the store, getting stuff for the church to go feed the homeless. So my life has always been, 24-hour operation. But I do wish that I was more diplomatic when it comes to people who have done me wrong, like my mother is. Because once you've done me wrong, you're gonna know it, and I'm not gonna hide it. And
so do you forgive?
It depends. Not all the time. And I think I was a person who absorbed a lot of my family hurt. My dad was a pastor, he was a Cancer, so he's a big teddy bear. It'll be all right. I was like, no, he left the church, so I was like the pit bull in the family.
But you're the oldest daughter too, right?
I'm the oldest, so, so I was automatically, and this is me at like 12, ready to fight for my daddy, a big old grown man. And so I absorbed a lot of people's pain because I would hear it, and I'm an empath. I'm like, no, we need to burn the house down, like, da-da-da-da. But to see the way my parents forgave and still, brought people in and still was sweet to them, I'm just like, these people can kick rocks. We ain't feeding these people. But the way my mom was able to forgive is why she's now blessed, even in her yesterdays, like her yesteryears. I mean, at 60 plus, God put on my heart to buy her a car. Not just because she's my mom, but I watched how she moved when people did her 100% wrong. And she still was like, no, we still gonna be a blessing. I said, you better than me, But understanding how being forgiving is not really for the person.
It's for you.
It's for you. And so that is something I'm continuously working on. But as of now, it's not working.
What's the difference? And I gotta, I tell people I got closer to God when I realized I had to forgive people who acted like they was moving in the spirit of God. My mom and grandma and my aunt are, when they say heavy praying women, like I come from a very church-based family.
Church down, yes.
And it's probably where I've seen the worst things.
In church.
Yeah. From church people.
Yep.
Right? And so, like most kids who have that upbringing, you normally go away from God, you go away from church, and you find your way back, right? But I just was like, if my mom and my grandma, who are similar to your mom still can find ways to still be sweet to people, maybe I need to. But, so I learned to forgive, but I don't forget anything.
Yeah.
And I might, if you do something to me and I forgive you, like I can see you and I can speak to you, but I'll never forget who you are. So there's certain opportunities you'll just never get from me no matter what. I won't step in the way of nobody else giving them to you. Like, I'm not gonna be spiteful, but I didn't forget that you had that in you.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit. A little bit. Oh, no, before we switch gears, I had to ask you this because you brought it up. What's your favorite Robert Glasper album?
Goodness. I mean, I'm trying to think which Black radio is my favorite. I think my favorites are predicated on where I am in life. But this last one, he did like a remastered one. Heaven's Right Here. That song, it's like it feels like I'm in a time machine. I'm like I literally will miss my exit. I will go through the lights, and it's just like he will just. And I met him a few times. He has some of my art. I sent him some socks. But it's almost like you meet your favorite rapper or singer, like whoever. Like I was like, I got to give you something. Like I don't think you realize that because you followed your gift, like all of this is because of you, other than God. But his music has healed me. Like my dad passed away 2010. Black Radio came out, and then we had it was him. I mean Common. We have Mos Def. Like I'm a conscious rapper, but I like music. So I'm like, you could take all the words out.
We're gonna have to have a jam session one day.
Oh, absolutely.
You speaking to them.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean, and like Jill Scott, that whole genre. I mean, of course they came out when I was like in college, but I used to sing in a neo soul band. So it was easy for me to learn music that I could feel.
You should have moved to Philly.
Yeah, no. Philly is rough.
Philly is rough.
So I really enjoy music that I can absorb. And I think that's how I became an artist, because I was such a feeler that I had to put the feeling somewhere. Like, give me a piece of paper, something. So I ended up pouring it out on canvas.
I'm a dinner party.
Okay.
And I think by my traditional my normal metrics, it wouldn't have been my favorite one from him.
Really?
But it hit in the pandemic.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. It's circumstantial.
And it's something about how dark the world felt at that time.
And that made you feel like...
And it just changed everything.
Energy.
And I love Knife Wonder.
He was at NCCU's homecoming, did a whole block party.
Yeah, he missed the North Carolina.
Yeah, Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Like the world's greatest hidden treasure.
Yep. I fight for Rhapsody so much.
No, Little Brother.
I fight for Little
Foreign
Brother.
Exchange.
Little
Brother was here for Gathering Spot, Ryan, his birthday. They were his surprise guests. So I was able to meet everybody there. So I love when I'm able to meet my favorite artists and just say thank you.
I've met the whole Little Brother except for Fonte.
He be everywhere.
I've worked with Big Pooh.
Oh.
I've been around Knife Wonder a lot. We have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah.
Rhapsody's not Little Brother, but she might as well be. She shot here in that same room that you shot in.
Oh, yeah.
She did a live concert from there. I literally talk about Layla's wisdom like it's the Bible.
And see, talking about COVID, right before that happened, so now he's not everybody's favorite, but Sunday Service by Kanye, when he came out with that album, that's when I was teeter-tottering between I was gonna quit my job. And I would hear the song Rain, and rain really represented abundance for me. And it was my way of hearing God say that it is going to rain, but you have to get outside to feel the rain. And outside was meaning leaving my job. And so I listened to that like on repeat and just worship God the day I turned in my resignation letter. And so that's it's like certain songs that are like, if I had to do a soundtrack for my life, that would be on my soundtrack. And just listening to those songs transport me back to the level of faith that it took for me to like keep going.
One day you gotta get Caleb to tell you his Sunday service story.
Okay, he went to a Sunday service?
He shot it.
OMG, fancy.
He shot it. So now we're gonna take a turn.
Skirt.
And you're so free flowing, right? So normally expressive people have things that are close to them that they don't express.
Okay.
What's something someone wouldn't know about you that you hold so dear to you?
I'm afraid of trees at night. Yeah, because the shadowing, because I have such a vivid imagination that it drives me crazy. Like, I literally have to cut every light on. Like, I don't like to be around a lot of trees. And I didn't realize until I moved to Georgia.
Georgia probably love you.
Oh, so I'm like, yeah, so I didn't realize it was a thing until I was like, okay, this is crazy. But on the flip side, I love to garden. So right now we're cutting down all the, the trees that are not gonna survive through the winter. And so now I have winter plants that I'm now gonna be cultivating. But I love the process of being able to put my hands in soil, put a seed in the ground, to nurture it, and it becomes something. So it's similar to being an artist, but using soil and seeds. And so I love outside, but with a caveat, as long as it's not a bunch of trees, big ones, big tall ones at night.
You in tree world down here.
I'm trying to think what else. I'm slightly afraid of heights, slightly. Just depends.
Just
we climbed the castle in Portugal.
In the side of buildings and all of this.
Yeah, I had to, but I have not done a mural on a huge building yet because of that. So I usually will work with an artist to let them paint it.
What's your relationship with fear? And I'll give you what I mean by that. My relationship with fear is part artistic and it's part kind of masculine, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like men shouldn't be comfortable with fear. Not that men shouldn't fear anything. They shouldn't be comfortable with it. So what that means is if I'm scared of something, if I'm scared of you, if I'm scared of trees, whatever I'm scared of, I have to confront it. I go towards it because I don't like sitting in a middle ground, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like you're scared of heights a little bit. You might be scared of the public sometimes when you paint your murals. What is your relationship with fear and how does that limit you or free you?
Just because I'm fearful of something doesn't mean I won't face it. So I have a ring that says faith over fear. And I ordered this the day that I
didn't even know that.
I know.
For the record, I didn't know that.
Shoot, I just made this thing fall.
It's okay.
Put it
Keep
back.
going.
My breast gonna hold it.
Keep this in.
So I ordered this ring called Faith Over Fear to remind me that anything that I'm afraid of, I have enough faith to get over that. And so like I am afraid of childbirth. That's like my next fear thing. But I know I gotta give birth to the next Michael Mitchell, which is my dad. He had no sons, so I was like, it's gonna be on me and my sisters to make it happen. So my faith has to be bigger than me not wanting to give birth. And so that's something I'm obviously gonna face sooner than later. Not now, later. But just realizing that faith has to be my biggest tool in my toolkit, no matter what. Fear is the smallest thing, but if I have a white canvas and it's a black dot, I'm gonna see that black dot on that white canvas. But it does not have to take it over. I can decide that the white is bigger than the black, or vice versa for color purposes.
But you're gonna be aware of it.
So I have to understand that just because I'm afraid of something doesn't mean I can't overcome it.
Pray or worry, don't do both.
You can't do both, it can't exist.
What's your most important piece? Whether that's painting, clothing, or other.
That's like choosing a kid. Did we talk about this earlier?
Yeah, you said everybody got a favorite kid, right? They do, because I'm definitely the favorite.
I've done.
I don't know if you're the favorite. I've met both of your sisters, and I met them in completely different spaces. Didn't even know they was your sisters. I can't
say it on camera that I'm the favorite, obviously.
You shouldn't say that.
I mean, I won't say it, but I'm just playing. I mean, I think I'm the favorite in certain circumstances. But if I had to choose one piece of artwork, I've done over 500 murals. 500 original pieces. So it's hard to pinpoint. But I think my first face that I did of this series is when I realized that was my artistic language. That first face, people were like,
It's like finding your voice.
They were like, oh my God, when you start doing that? I was like, I just made it yesterday. And now I still have it in my room. Like I'm never gonna sell that. Because that was the first time I said, this is what God wants me to do. And literally was like throw up. Every day I was like painting faces. They on my Bible. They on note card.
You want to hang that in here?
Absolutely not.
I tried.
So I think that particular piece, and then my first head wrap is named after my mom. It's called the Elaine. And so all of my head wraps are named after my close friends or people that I admire or people that I want to honor. Because I feel like everybody gets honored when they're gone. Like, oh, this is the Monroe.
Now.
And it's like, girl, and so because when I first went viral, people were like, well, what hair wrap is that? So I had to keep saying the Elaine, the Elaine, the Elaine. So I was saying my mother's name, giving it power. She's like, girl, people keep saying they buy my hair wrap. And so The Antoinette is for Monique, the Ariel is for Melanie. And so to see people reference the artwork by my friends' names, I was like, that's my friend Sharice, that's my friend this. So it's just exciting to see that people rock with designs, but they're having to say my friend's name over and over.
Giving them power.
Yep.
What was the hardest or scariest piece you've done?
So in 2019, I got deathly ill. And I had just gotten a call from Pepsi to paint the mural for Super Bowl. And I was on medication. I was going to the bathroom every 5 minutes. Like I was throwing up, like I was really, really sick. I had to lay on the floor to paint a 10-foot sketch for Pepsi. And they had no idea because I had already signed a contract. And I was like, there's no way I can give up this opportunity. The money was great, but it was like, this is the mural for the Super Bowl. And so I had to be transparent and say, listen, I can't stand up. Like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to paint this mural. And so the lady said, I'm just glad that you told us this. She said, we're still gonna pay you in full, and we're just gonna contract people to paint your sketch. And my mural was the largest one for the Super Bowl in 2019. But when I look at photos of it, I get emotional because I was like near death, and I still was able to produce that mural.
That brings me to a story that I know about because I've interviewed you before.
Okay.
That feels like the story about your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And the way your dad passed, and I'm glad you made it. But
Yes.
that dedication, I don't know if that's the dedication to the job, is that the dedication to the art, is that the dedication to your word?
Yeah.
Like, what is it in you that made you feel like this was bigger than you being sick?
Well, I mean, when you have been on the front line of somebody dying, it gives you a different urgency for excellence, a different urgency to live. And so I didn't know that I was like that sick, but I felt like if I'm gonna die, it's gonna be with this mural, you know? And so I was able to still sign my name. I literally had to like have crutches to go sign my name, but I made it. But in my mind, I was like, if something happened to me, at least the world would see this is my last greatest act. And even they found my dad, he had a notebook, and he was like in the middle of writing a sentence. Even to the last moment, he was like, and so I always said that it's important for me to create at a cadence where people are encouraged to do the same. And so legacy is what keeps me alive. I don't have children yet.
That's a
So it keeps me going because I'm like, if this is it, I gotta make it great. Make this exclamation, every day is an exclamation point. Like from 1980 to now, what am I doing every single day to make that dash fly? And so whenever that end date is, they be like, wow, she did everything she could because that girl was always busy. And so even my friends that saw this, they were like, well, damn, when you had time to do that? I was like, last night. I said, well, y'all were hemming and hawing about not having a date, being upset, mad about work. I took 6 hours out of my day, because we get 24, to create legacy. And so every day I take a few hours, a few minutes to add towards my legacy. And it doesn't have to be big. It could be this big, or it could be just as small as calling a friend I hadn't spoke to in a long time. But people look at legacy as these big exclamation points. But it can be as small as hugging a baby and they remembering who you are because you're on a colorful head wrap, and now they want to be an artist. And so I think if we leave breadcrumbs of excellence all along the way, our legacy will be long lasting and bigger than we can imagine.
Do you think your legacy is gonna be too big for a man?
I feel that my legacy is perfect for a man because it will encourage him to be even better. There was a quote, one of my favorite shows, A Different World, and she was like, oh,
Bars.
would you marry Dwayne if he was like poor, he was this, he was that? She was like, honey, any man I marry would not be poor or anything because he's with me. And so that's the same way I feel. I'm not about raising a man, but I think that a man with me wants to raise the bar. He wants to change for better. Because how can you see your wife, your 5'2" wife, go paint a mural in 6 hours?
Short.
To see your 5-foot wife go paint a mural and you complaining about somebody at work that gave you a headache. Okay, do something else. And so I think my friends see me and are encouraged, like, girl, I thought you were sick. Yeah, I was, but I also went and painted a mural. And so I'm not a woman that harnesses a lot of excuses. And so any man that decides to partner with me exclusively, they would be pushed to their best self. And our love will be an inspiration for me to do even more murals on a Thursday.
I got an argument with an old friend.
She your ex or a friend?
She's not my ex.
You used to screw?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. That sets into context.
Yeah. But I know her brother.
Uh-huh.
Right? So we was having a loosely based conversation, kind of based around why we didn't work, because I work the way I work. And then, her talking about, on one hand, she's complaining about that, but then on the other hand, she's saying, well, my brother could be doing so much more with his life. He had so much of this, so much of that. And I'm like, well, if you're complaining, I'm like, that's why we didn't work. Because who you marry or who you choose to spend the predominant amount of your time with exclusively, they rub off on you for better or for worse, and you leave them or you stay with them. And what I was telling her is, if a stagnant man marries an ambitious woman, he's either gonna become ambitious or she's gonna leave him. If a stagnant woman marries an ambitious man, she's either gonna become ambitious or he's gonna leave her, or he's going to provide a space for her to be included in that ambition. And it's just it's so refreshing kind of hearing that side from a woman.
Yeah, I think we have to be more optimistic when it comes to relationships. I think people going into it like, what you gonna do for me? I'm like, I'm excited about helping a man build his vision. Like, take me off this ladder to come help you fold some shirts. Like, I want to be a part of a vision, but I also came from a family where my mom was folding t-shirts in the back of the van on our way to family homecoming. So I saw partnership in action. And so the other issue is a lot of people don't see that. Like, a lot of people don't see entrepreneurial driven homes. Like, my parents both had 9-to-5s and were entrepreneurs.
Or just partnership in homes.
Our partnership. And so I think the misnomer when it comes to entrepreneurship is that we're gonna be broke or you're not gonna be home. And so I think you have to debunk all of these preconceived notions about entrepreneurship or being a dream, or he ain't gonna never be home. Because if you marry a doctor, he ain't gonna be home either. You marry a lawyer, you got to hear about all this stuff that you ain't supposed to hear about anyway. So you get with a person, a human that you like, the energy that inspires you. And like I've told many of my exes, like, if you don't inspire me, this isn't gonna work. And inspire me doesn't mean you have to give me a brush, give me a paint. It's like, I wanna be a better self and I wanna create. And so I think relationships have to be looked at a little bit differently. It's not transactional, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's foundational, it's all those things. And if the relationship is right, it's gonna push you to be a better version of yourself.
Do you feel you have a responsibility to push that optimism into more like the next generation? Or do you think it's just more of a communal thing? Because I always kind of battle with, is your impact supposed to be like mega impact, or are you supposed to impact the 10, 15 people around you and that offspring becomes your impact?
I mean, it goes back to your purpose, right? I believe that my purpose is meant to inspire. And so that might be about relationships, that might be about this, but I'm also very private. So whether my relationship is great or not, that's not something that I'll ever share because that's nobody's business. I'll share my ideals about it, but you'll never hear he bought me this is my man gave me this, because for what? Like, that's, if my man is doing this for me, it's not for the world to know, right? And so you'll see that my man is taking care of me because I'm smiling and skipping every time you see me. So it doesn't have anything to do with, putting it on social, tagging him, his hand in the background, who you out of town with. I said, I can get on flights by myself, right? And so I think for me, I can show you better than I can tell you. And so having opportunities like this to have a sit down, that is my contribution to optimism. That is my contribution to relational information. I don't have to get on podcasts and broadcasts, a black man better do this. I'm talking about for me. And I think that's when I go on panels, I'm like, hey, y'all came to see me, so this is my opinion. You're welcome to do what you want to do with this. Like what they say, when you give advice, I'm just saying, no, take it as you need it. So I think people have to understand that you can look at people for ideas, but don't let that become your blueprint as if that's going to work perfectly for you.
I asked you this before, but I'm going to ask you again. Success or love?
We talked about this before. What did I say last time? Success, didn't I? Didn't I say success?
I don't know.
It's a hard thing because if you talk about purpose and passion, I might give birth to love through my success. Or if I'm loved properly, I might be successful. So they're almost synonymous for me.
I don't know if you're a writer, a rapper, or a politician.
All of it.
But you got them. You got them all the way down.
All of it.
Last two things, and this is about art. We're going to end on art.
Okay, good, because I'm hungry.
Favorite artist in any genre?
I already have one.
Favorite creative?
Who is one of my favorite creatives? We already talked about him. Let me pick another one. Who is a favorite creative? Basquiat is so cliche. I want somebody black. I will say this person. Recently, I don't know if you've heard of a guy named Radcliffe lately.
I have.
Atlanta native, pioneer. He passed away this week. And I'm mentioning him because I think a lot of time artists are creating, especially in our age, well, not age group, but in our society right now, people are like, you're just going, creating. And I don't think people really understand how guaranteed death is. And when you see an artist die, particularly for me, I cried because I was just like, wow, he had so much more to do, but he did so much. And we don't realize the impact of artists until they're gone. And it is my goal to be impactful while I'm here, to understand my impact. And I think, random people DM me every day, and I'm like, hey, you just keep DMing me. And I had to start answering them because I'm like, my flowers have been given. I can't be frustrated with DMs saying thank you and then get mad when ain't nobody said nothing to me. And so when I saw his picture, you could see the life still in his eyes. I'm like, well, God, he still has so much more left to do. God said, well, he did what he was supposed to do. And then that made me come and paint this mural in 6 hours. And so, not that death encourages me, but death does push me every day. Because if this is the last thing, then it better be amazing.
Better be fire.
Yeah.
Quote you live by.
I have this on my Gmail signature. It is, if you want life to be different, be prepared to do life differently. And I think a lot of people have these dream boards and a man better do this, a woman better do this. Well, you're not doing none of the stuff you're asking for. So if I'm asking for millions and I keep spending all my money on Amazon, when the millions gonna show up if I keep spending it? And so for me, I know this year I wanted to be more physically fit. I wanted my clothes to lay better. And so I hired a trainer. And now I did life differently. And now my trainer texted me like, hey, we see you in 2 days. Where you at? And so the accountability of making that decision to change is what changed my life. And so I think people have to be prepared to do life differently when they ask for God to do something different.
Thank you.
You're welcome.